Well, so again, this idea, no, that Andrews is expressing so powerfully here. I feel so clean and free. It's like voluntarily taking up filth and slavery again. No, to wear the uniform is to be a slave. And of course, the one who answers is the white man. But he has a neat uniform, well-polished boots, but is contrasting strangely with the mud-clotted, sweat-soaked clothing of the men about him, sat down on the grass beside Andrews. You are goddamn right, I do. You'll get into trouble, my boy, if you talk that way. You see, this white man is always like, like an old lady speaking about morals, no? Well, what is your definition of slavery? You must remember that you are a voluntary worker in the cause of democracy. You are doing this so that your children will be able to live peacefully. Ever shot a man? No, no, of course not. But I'd have enlisted. Really, I would. Only my eyes are weak. I guess so, said Andrews under his breath. Remember that your women folks, your sisters and sweethearts and mothers are praying for you at this instant. So you see how Andrews cynically, yes, answers. I wish somebody'd prayed me into a clean shirt, said Andrews. So it is easy for the white man to say this, no? Just 3 months, the man's sallow face with its pinched nose and chin lit up. But boys, those 3 months have been worth all the years of my he caught himself, life. I heard the great heart of America beat. Oh, boys, never forget that you are in a great Christian undertaking. No, so you see these wonderful words, no, and the soldiers are the ones who suffer, not the white man.
Ironical, John Dos Passos. So ironic,
Yes.
no?
Yes, yes, yes. So well, near the field, in the some lines later, near the field, Kitchen Crisfield saw Sergeant Anderson again. No, he was talking with Higgins, his own sergeant. They were laughing together, and he heard Anderson's big voice saying jovially, "We pulled through this time, Higgins. I guess we will again." The two sergeants looked at each other and cast a paternal, condescending glance over their men and laughed aloud. Crisfield felt powerless as an ox under the yoke. All he could do was work and strain and stand at attention, while that white-faced Anderson could lounge about as if he owned the earth and laugh importantly like that. You see, this is what Crisfield feels, no? In the next paragraph, Crisfield glanced suddenly at Anderson, who sat in the grass at the back of the house, looking out over the wheat fields, while the smoke of a cigarette rose in spirals about his face and his fair hair. He looked peaceful, almost happy. Crisfield clenched his fists, and felt the hatred of that other man rising stingily within him. Guess I got a bit of the devil in me, he thought. No, so you see, Crisfield, the other one hasn't seen him yet. No, so, well, that night, yes, the windows were so near the grass that the faint light had a greenish color in the shack where the company was quartered. It gave men's faces tanned as they were the sickly look of people who work in offices. Then, now that the shack was empty, Crisfield could hear plainly the peep-peep of the little swallows in their mud nests. Here comes, again, a very very dangerous scene, no? Because he's alone in the shack. His hands that had got to be the color of terracotta hung idly between his legs. He was whistling faintly. His eyes, in their long black eyelashes, were fixed on the distance, though he was not thinking. He felt a comfortable, unexpressed well-being all over him. It was pleasant to be alone in the barracks like this. when the other men were out at grenade practice. There was no chance of anyone shouting orders at him. A warm drowsiness came over him. From the field kitchen alongside came the voice of a man singing, "Oh, my girl's a Lulu, every inch a Lulu is Lulu, that pretty little girl of mine." In their mud nests, the young swallows twittered faintly overhead. Now and then there was a bit of wings, and a big swallow skimmed into the shack. Crisfield's cheeks began to feel very softly flushed. His head drooped over on his chest. Crisfield fell asleep. So you see, he was alone and he felt happy and he fell asleep. At the same time, there is a comparison between Crisfield and the swallows. You understand swallows, no? Las golondrinas that were in the roof, and there were nests of little swallows, and the big swallows brought them food. You know, they have the little pigeons, and he fell asleep. He woke up with a start. The shack was almost dark. A tall man stood black against the bright oblong of the door. "What are you doing here?" said a deep, snarling voice. Crisfield's eyes blinked. Automatically, he got to his feet. It might be an officer. His eyes focused suddenly. It was Anderson's face that was between him and the light. So who discovers him when he was sleeping? Anderson. How is it you ain't out with the company?
Yes, and that's his enemy.
Yes, the same that in the past, before being a sergeant, had been so aggressive to Chris.
Yes.
How is it you ain't out with the company? I'm barracks guard, muttered Crisfield. He could feel the blood beating in his wrists and temples, stinging in his eyes like fire. He was staring at the floor in front of Anderson's feet. Orders was all the companies was to go out and not leave any guard. We'll see about that when Sergeant Higgins comes in. Is this place tidy? You say I'm a goddamned liar, do you? Crisfield felt suddenly cool and joyous. He felt anger taking possession of him. He seemed to be standing somewhere away from himself, watching himself get angry. You see, he feels this kind of division, no? As if he could see himself from outside. This place has got to be cleaned up. That damn general may come back to look over quarters, went on Anderson coolly. You call me a goddamn liar, said Crisfield again. I guess you don't remember me. Yes, I know. You are the guy tried to run a knife into me once. So you see, Anderson recognized it. I guess you've learned a little discipline by this time. Anyhow, you've got to clean this place up. God, they haven't even brushed the bird's nest down. Must be some company, said Anderson with a half laugh. I ain't a-going to neither for you. Look here, you do it or it'll be worse for you, shouted the sergeant. If ever I gets out of the army, I'm going to shoot you. You've picked on me enough. Crisfield spoke slowly, as coolly as Anderson. Well, we'll see what a court-martial has to say to that. I don't give a hoot in hell what you do. Sergeant Anderson turned on his heel and went out, twisting the corner button of his tunic in his big fingers. Already the sound of tramping feet was heard and the shouted order, dismissed. The men crowded into the shack, laughing and talking. Crisfield sat still on the end of the bunk, looking at the bright oblong of the door. Outside, he saw Anderson talking to Sergeant Higgins. They shook hands and Anderson disappeared. Crisfield heard Sergeant Higgins call after him. I guess the next time I see you, I'll have to put my heels together and salute. Anderson's booming laugh faded as he walked away. Sergeant Higgins came into the shack and walked straight up to Crisfield, saying in a hard official voice, You are under arrest. Small, guard this man. So you see, he will end up at a court-martial after this discussion, let's say, argument with Anderson. He went out. Everyone's eyes were turned curiously on Crisfield. Small, a red-faced man with a long nose that hung down over his upper lip, shuffled sheepishly over to his place beside Crisfield's cot and let the butt of his rifle come down with a bang on the floor. Somebody laughed. Andrews walked up to them, a look of trouble in his blue eyes and in the lines of his lean, tan cheeks. "What's the matter, Chris?" he asked in a low voice. "Told that bastard I didn't give a hoot in hell what he did," said Crisfield in a broken voice. "Say, Andy, I don't think I ought to let anybody talk to him. I don't see why Sarge always gives me all his dirty work." Andrews walked off without replying. "Never mind, Chris, they won't do nothing to you," said Jenkins, grinning at him good-naturedly from the door. "I don't give a hoot in hell what they do," said Crisfield again. He lay back in his bunk and looked at the ceiling. The barracks was full of a bustle of cleaning up. Judkins was sweeping the floor with a broom made of dry sticks. Another man was knocking down the swallows' nests with a bayonet. The mud nests crumbled and fell on the floor, and the bunks filling the air with a flutter of feathers and the smell of birdlime. The little naked bodies, with their orange bills, too big for them, gave a soft plump when they hit the boards of the floor, where they lay giving faint, gasping squeaks. Meanwhile, with shrill little cries, the big swallows flew back and forth in the shanty, now and then striking the low roof. You see how there is a comparison again between the birds, the little birds, and Crisfield. Crisfield is under arrest, and he's going to be court-martialed, and the Anderson, the sergeant, had asked the men to throw the nests to the floor. So the little birds, who are, yes, very little to fly, are giving faint gasping squeaks. They are dying. And the big birds are flying madly, no? So the poor little birds are being killed, the same as Crisfield is being punished. "Say, pick them up, can't you?" said Small. Judkins was sweeping the little gasping bodies. You understand? Gasping. They want to breathe out among the dust and dirt. A stoutish man stooped and picked the little birds up one by one, puckering his lips into an expression of tenderness. He made his two hands into a nest-shaped hollow, out of which stretched the long necks and the gaping orange mouths. Andrews ran into him at the door. "Hello, Dad," he said. "What the hell? I just picked this up." "So they couldn't let the poor little devil stay there. God, it looks to me as if they went out of their way to give pain to everything, bird, beast, or man." So you see, the other soldiers are also angry because they are killing the birds with no reason. "War ain't no picnic," said Judkins. "Well, God damn it. Isn't that a reason for not going out of your way to raise more hell with people's feelings than you have too?" A face with picked chin and nose on which was stretched a parchment-colored skin appeared in the door. "Hello, boys," said the white man. "I just thought I'd tell you I'm going to open the canteen tomorrow." You see, the white man again appearing there innocently, saying that he's going to open the canteen, and the soldiers are sad for Crisfield, and they are sad for the birds. His eye lit on the little birds in Dad's hands. "How could you," he said, "an American soldier being deliberately cruel? I would never have believed it." "You've got something to learn," muttered Dad. Yes, so he cannot believe, he says so, that an American soldier can kill the birds. But it isn't the American soldier. It was the sergeant who ordered this, no? Crisfield had been watching the scene at the door with unseeing eyes. A terrified nervousness that he tried to beat off had come over him. It was useless to repeat to himself again and again that he didn't give a damn. The prospect of being brought up alone before all those officers, of being cross-questioned by those curt voices, frightened him. He would rather have been lashed. Whatever was he to say, he kept asking himself, he would get mixed up or say things he didn't mean to, or else he wouldn't be able to get a word out at all. As if only Andy could go and help him. You see again the nervousness, no? That Crisfield is a very primitive soldier. He doesn't have education, and so he answers to the sergeant, and he says that he doesn't give a damn for the court-martial, but he's terrified because he knows that he will have to answer to a court, no? So when we read this, Dos Passos is creating pathos, no? This sympathy that we feel for the poor young man, no? If only Andy could go up with him. Andy was educated like the officers were. He had more learning than the whole shooting match put together. He'd be able to defend himself and defend his friends too, if only they'd let him. I felt just like those little birds that time they got the bead on our trench at Boticourt, said Jenkins, laughing. So you see, now the little bird that is being destroyed is Crisfield. Crisfield listened to the talk about him as if from another world. Already he was cut off from his outfit. He'd disappear and they'd never know or care what became of him. Because now he's going to be separated from the company, no? Because he has to wait for the court-martial. So he feels that he disappears and that nobody would care for him. Again, this question of pathos, no? Created this sympathy that we feel. Crisfield found Andrews washing a shirt in the brook that flowed through the ruins of the village, the other side of the road from the buildings where the division was quartered. The blue sky, flecked with pinkish white clouds, gave a shimmer of blue and lavender and white to the bright water. At the bottom could be seen battered helmets and bits of equipment and tin cans that had once held meat. Andrews turned his head. He had a smudge of mud down his nose and soap suds on his chin. "Hello, Chris," he said, looking him in the eyes with his sparkling blue eyes. "How's things?" There was a faint, anxious frown on his forehead. 2/3 of one's month's pay and confined to quarters. So Crisfield is coming back from the court-martial. And the question is, Andrews is asking, is what happened? And this is the punishment, 2/3 of one's month's pay and confined to quarters. So he doesn't have a leave, no tiene como licencia, and he has to pay, let's say, he's going to collect less money. Guy, they were easy, said, I was a good shot and all that, so they'd let me off this time. Andrew started scrubbing at his shirt again. I've got this shirt so full of mud, I don't think I ever will get it clean. Move your whole hide away, Andy. I'll wash it. You ain't no good for nothing. Hell no, I'll do it. Move your hide out of here. Thanks awfully. So you see how Crisfield is going to wash the shirt as a kind, of a retribution to his friend, yes? He wants to help Andrews, and he says, you are good for nothing. You don't know how to wash your shirt. I'm going to shoot that bastard, said Crisfield, scrubbing at the shirt. Don't be an ass, Chris. I swear to God I am. So remember this phrase, because this is what he's going to do. What's the use of getting all wrought up? The thing's over. You'll probably never see him again. I ain't all hit up. I'm going to do it, though. He wrung the shirt out carefully and flipped Andrews in the face with it. There you are. You are a good fellow, Chris, even if you are an ass. Tell me we are going into the line in a day or two. There's been a devil of a lot of artillery going up the road, French, British, every old kind. Tell me there's racing hell in the Oregon forest. They walked slowly across the road. A motorcycle dispatched rider whizzed past them. It's them guys has the fun, said Crisfield. I don't believe anybody has much. What about the officers? They are too busy feeling important to have a real hell of a time. Again, the comparison with the officers, yes, they seem not to be part of the war. Well, so they are going near the front, and Crisfield wants to fight. The hard cold rain beat like a flash in his face. There was no light anywhere and no sound but the hiss of the rain in the grass. His eyes strained to see through the dark until red and yellow blotches danced before them. He walked very slowly and carefully, holding something very gently in his hand under his raincoat. He felt himself full of a strange, subdued fury. He seemed to be walking behind himself, spying on his own actions. And what he saw made him feel joyously happy, made him want to sing. He turned so that the rain beat against his... Yes, Malena.
Yes, I wanted to know because I got lost. Crisfield is going to be punished for the martial court.
He has been punished, but a little punishment. He wasn't very hard punished. You remember when he said before that he had to collect only 2/3 of his money and that he was without permission to leave. That was the punishment.
Okay. And then they are going to the front, and
Yes.
he's very eager to fight.
Yes,
Okay.
but when he's liberated from his arrest, and he finds Andrews washing the shirt, he tells Andrews that he's going to kill Anderson. No, remember that. And now he's there at night, walking at night, trying not to be seen, not to be heard, yes, spying. And where is he going? He's going to the house, to the shack where the officers are, but silently, yes. He turned so that the rain beat against his cheek. Under his helmet, he felt his hair full of sweat that ran with the rain down his glowing face. His fingers clutched very carefully the smooth stick he had in his hand. He stopped and shut his eyes for a moment. Through the hiss of the rain, he had heard a sound of men talking in one of the shanties. When he shut his eyes, he saw the white face of Anderson before him, with its unshaven chin and the eyebrows that met across the nose. Suddenly, he felt the wall of a house in front of him. So remember, he's walking in darkness, no? So
Yes.
he touches the wall of the house.
Maybe with the intention of killing Anderson.
Of course, he's going to the place, yes, where he supposes that Anderson is. Well, he groped along the wall. Yes, you know this verb, to grope is to walk, touching, yes, feeling the wall, not to fall. He groped along the wall, stepping very cautiously. He felt as he had felt reconnoitering in the Bingy wood. Phrases came to his mind as they had them. Without thinking what they meant, the words, "make the world safe for democracy," formed themselves in his head. They were very comforting. They occupied his thoughts. He said to himself again and again. Meanwhile, his free hand was fumbling very carefully with the fastening that held the wooden shutter over a window. The shutter opened a very little, creaking loudly, louder than the patter of rain on the roof of the shack. A stream of water from the roof was pouring into his face. Suddenly, a beam of light transformed everything, cutting the darkness in two. The rain glittered like a bead curtain. Crisfield was looking into a little room where a lamp was burning. At a table covered with printed blanks of different size sat a corporal. Behind him was a bank and a pile of equipment. The corporal was reading a magazine. Crisfield looked at him a long time. His fingers were tight about the smooth stick. There was no one else in the room. A sort of panic seized Crisfield. He strode away noisily from the window and pushed open the door of the shack. "Where's Sergeant Anderson?" he asked in a breathless voice of the first man he saw. "Corpse, if it's anything important," said the man. "Anderson's gone to an OITC, left day before yesterday." So you see, Crisfield went to this place in silence, without making a noise, with a stick in his hand, but he couldn't find Anderson. He had left the day before. So Crisfield leaves the place, was out in the rain again. It was beating straight in his face so that his eyes were full of water. He was trembling. He had suddenly become terrified. The smooth stick he held seemed to burn him. He was straining his ears for an explosion. Walking straight before him down the road, he went faster and faster, as if trying to escape from it. He stumbled on a pile of stones. Automatically, he pulled the string out of the grenade and threw it far from him. So you see what he was planning to do. He was...
Yes, to blow the shelter where Anderson was.
Yes, but Anderson wasn't there. And so when he came back, he was terrified and trembling, and he threw the grenade all the same.
Yes, but
There was...
the shelter was empty.
Well, there was a corporal there.
Ah, okay.
There was a minute's pause. Red flame spurted in the middle of the wheat field. He felt the sharp crash in his eardrums. He walked fast through the rain. Behind him at the door of the shack, he could hear excited voices. He walked recklessly on, the rain blinding him. When he finally stepped into the light, he was so dazzled he could not see who was in the wine shop. So he threw the grenade, and the man, of course, he didn't kill anybody because he threw it into the wheat field. But all the same, everybody was surprised at the explosion. He escaped and he went to the bar. "Well, I'll be damned," Chris said Andrew's voice. Crisfield blinked the rain out of his lashes. Andrew sat writing with a pile of papers before him and a bottle of champagne. It seemed to Crisfield to soothe his nerves to hear Andy's voice. He wished he would go on talking a long time without a pause. "If you aren't the crowning idiot of the ages," Andrews went on in a low voice. He took Crisfield by the arm and led him into the little back room, where was a high bed with a brown coverlet and a big kitchen table on which were the remnants of the meal. "What's the matter? Your arm's trembling like the devil." You see, so Andrews was waiting for Crisfield at the bar. And he didn't know what Crisfield had intended to do, of course. And so when he sees him, he says, "Okay, why are you trembling?" And he was waiting for him to offer him the girl. Oh,
Mhm.
pardon, Krimpet. Senami, you know Krimpet, don't you? He pointed to a youngish woman who had just appeared from behind the bed. She had a flabby, rosy face and violet circles under her eyes, dark as if they'd been made by blows, and untidy hair. A dirty gray muslin dress with half the hooks off held in badly her large breasts and flabby figure. Crisfield looked at her greedily, feeling his furious irritation flame into one desire. So you see how his anger changes into sexual desire. What's the matter with you, Chris? You are crazy to break out of quarters this way. Say, Andy, get out of here. I ain't your sort anyway. Get out of here. You are a wild man again. No, this is the second time that Andrews tells Crisfield, you are wild. Have a drink, not now. So Andrews waits for him, and he says, no, I'm your sort, Chris. Only they've tamed me. Oh God, how tame I am. So you see, Andrews says, we are the same, but I have been tamed. Remember that soldiers have been molded, yes? And Andrews, who was more rebellious and more artistically, bent, felt that now he has been tamed, yes? How tame I am. Crisfield did not listen to what he was saying. He stood in front of the woman, staring in her face. She looked at him in a stupid, frightened way. He felt in his pocket for some money. As he had just been paid, he had a 50-franc note. He spread it out carefully before her. Her eyes glistened. The pupils seemed to grow smaller as they fastened on the bit of daintily colored paper. He crumpled it up suddenly in his fist and shoved it down between her breasts. So all his anger is transformed, let's say, into this sexual, let's say, passion, no? Sometime later, Crisfield sat down in front of Andrews. I guess you think I'm a swine, he said in his normal voice. I guess you are about right. No, I don't, said Andrews. Something made him put his hand on Crisfield's hand that lay on the table. It had a feeling of cool health. Say, why were you trembling so when you came in here? You seem all right now. I don't know, said Crisfield. They were silent for a long while. They could hear the woman's footsteps going and coming behind them. Let's go home, said Crisfield. All right. Bonsoir, Krimpet. Outside, the rain had stopped. A stormy wind had torn the clouds to rags. Again, after the storm is the storm in Crisfield's head. He wanted to kill Sergeant Anderson, and he was furious. He couldn't kill him. Then he, in a way, spent his fury with the girl, and now they are leaving, they are quiet, the rain had stopped, and there is a wind, yes? Here and there, clusters of stars showed through. They splashed merrily through the puddles, but here and there reflected a patch of stars when the wind was not ruffling them. Christ, I wish I was like you, Andy, said Crisfield. You don't want to be like me, Chris. I'm no sort of a person at all. I'm tame. Oh, you don't know how damn tame I am. Learning sure do help a fellow to get along with in the world. Not always the comparison. Crisfield is ignorant and Andrews is a learned man. He has studied. Yes, but what's the use of getting along if you haven't any world to get along in? No, so Andrews is, Teresa looks at me. Look at this question, no? A very philosophical question. What's the use? No, what's the use of getting along if you haven't any world to get along in? Chris, I belong to a crowd that just fakes learning. I guess the best thing that can happen to us is to get killed in this butchery. We are a tame generation. It's you that it matters to kill. Ah, this is terrible. We are a tame generation. Yes. So he says, the best thing that can happen to us is to get killed. Hmm?
Mm.
I ain't no good for anything. I don't give a damn, Lossie. I feel sleepy. As they slipped in the door of their quarters, the sergeant looked at Crisfield searchingly. Andrew spoke up at once. There are some rumors going on at the latrine, Sarge. The fellows from the 32nd say we are going to march into Hell's Half-Acre about Thursday. Ah, a lot they know about it. That's the latest edition of the latrine news. The hell it is. Well, do you want to know something, Andrews?